Welcome back to the program, everyone. My name is Dr. Dan, and I'm a pharmacist turned weight management specialist. I'm excited about today's episode because we're going back to the basics, and we're going to kind of talk about, well, how do we even use some of these medications such as Saxenda or Ozempic? Using the pen, how do we do the injection? It was kind of a realization after a few comments that I was like, hey, we're always talking about kind of the higher level stuff of the expectations, what the drug does, but we haven't even covered how the heck do we actually use this pen. Now, it's pretty straightforward. It's pretty simple because the drug company wants to make it as easy as possible for you, but there's a few things that I want to review with you in detail. And of course, before we dive into everything, don't forget to hit the subscribe button down below so that you don't miss another episode every time it gets released. Now, the first thing that I want to preface this with is that this is just a very general guideline. Your specific situation might differ, so always be sure to check with your own family physician, family pharmacist, and have the discussion about these medications and how to properly use them for your own specific situation and use. So first things first, I'm only going to be talking about the Saxenda and Ozempic pens today. The Wegovy pen, so that's the semaglutide or Ozempic at 2.4 milligrams once per week, will likely have a very similar pen and mechanism, or at least something quite identical, so it won't be too far off base. There's a number of other GLP receptor agonists on the market, such as Trulicity, Adalimumab, that sort of thing, and they all have slightly different mechanisms, but slightly similar in the same regards as well. However, these ones are made by the same drug company, Novo Nordisk, same with Wegovy, and so I'm going to review them because virtually they're exactly the same. Now, one of the first things that we're going to need before we start injecting these medications is we need the needle tips, or the needle pens, if you will. And these generally come with, say, the Ozempic pen, because you're only injecting this medication once per week, and this first initial pen, you'll be able to usually get about 6 doses out of it, whereas the Saxenda pen, you're going to be injecting that one on a daily basis, so you probably won't get the sample pack of needles because, well, you're going to need a lot more needle tips, and so you're going to have to make sure that you get those from your local pharmacy. The first thing that I want to talk about here is please, 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 please do not reuse your needle tips and do not share your needle tips with others. Your needle tips are your own and they should only be used by you for your medications. Now, this should be relatively self-explanatory, but I've had a number of clients and patients that hasn't been the case. And yes, they have shared these needle tips, they have reused these needle tips, and I want to give you a couple of reasons why this is a bad idea. Number one, sharing anything that might be contaminated with another individual's blood is bad news bears. Think hepatitis C, HIV, and other bloodborne pathogens can certainly get shared between individuals that share the same needles, razors, and that sort of thing. And I don't care if they're your partner or family member, do not share needle tips. Number two, reusing a needle tip can potentially lead to infection. You spend about 10 seconds with that needle actually inside of you, but you don't know where that needle is for the other 86,390 seconds of the day. Yeah, it might be just sitting on your counter with the pen lid over top of it, but who knows has come by and touched it and done other things to it, and what could potentially get on there that could contaminate it and cause all kinds of problems for you. Number three, these needles are very delicate, and as soon as you use them, as soon as you puncture your skin, that needle is now dull, which upon subsequent injections is going to be A, more painful, and B, is going to probably cause more bruising for you. And if there's any confusion on this, think of what do you use to cut a steak? We're not using a spoon, we're often using a sharp knife. And for the love of God, please don't resharpen your needles with like a Matchbox striker. I've had patients tell me about this. Please just get a new needle. I will find you new needles. Your healthcare provider will find you your new needles if that is what it's coming to for you. I say these things because I care. Capiche? All right, moving on. So whenever you get a new pen, you're going to take it out of the box and you're going to have it in your hands just like this. The very first thing you always want to do is you want to inspect it, right? You want to take a look. And in particular, we want to look at this window right here and make sure that it's actually clear. There shouldn't be anything floating in it, no white debris, no particulates, anything like that. Bubbles are totally fine. That is expected and that is okay. But anything else that you see is something that you need to then take back to your pharmacy and let them know so they can get you a replacement pen. Now, if your pen all looks good, we can go and put a needle tip on it. So we've got the needle tips here. As I said, this is kind of a sample pack. It came with the Ozempic pens. And there's a number of different kinds of needle tips out there. You generally want the what would be considered like the insulin needle tips. Usually they're about 32 gauge. The higher the gauge goes, the smaller that the needle gets. And generally anywhere from 4 to 6 millimeters is the length of the needle tip that you want. 4 millimeters should be more than sufficient for 99% of individuals. But here's kind of what the needle will look like and how it comes. What you're going to do is remove the top, the plastic top, right? Take that off. That all looks good there. And then we're going to put it on the top of our pen. So we removed the paper from our needle. Now we're going to push it into our pen just like this. You want to try and line it up as best as you can. And then you're going to screw it down until it is snug. Then we are going to take off the first cap. This is kind of the bigger cap. You want to hang on to this guy. And you'll notice there's another second little cap on there. All right, we also want to take off that second little cap. This one you can throw out. Please don't try to put this one back on. You will most definitely stab yourself. And I don't know if you can really see it all that well, but there's the tiny little needle. Look how cute it is, right? Just a tiny little guy. The next thing that we always want to do is we want to check the flow of these pens, okay? This is something that you only need to do the first time, but it's important to check to make sure that medication is actually leaving and coming out of the pen. If you haven't been doing this up to this point, it likely has been okay, but I do recommend doing it every time from here on out. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn it up just a couple of clicks, and hopefully you can see this all right, where there's a line and 2 dots now. Cool, you see the line and 2 dots? What you're going to do is you're going to press the button until it all zeroes out again. Wonderful, fantastic, everything looks good, and you should see a little bleb or a drop of water at the end of your pen. That means that there is fluid, in fact, flowing through it. Everything looks good in that perspective. If you don't see any fluid, you're going to just repeat that process. Back up to the line and 2 drops, press the button, and wow, we got a lot coming out on that one. So clearly now the pen is fully primed and ready to go, and there's actually quite a nice little bleb of water on there. So that's what we want to see. That shows us that there's great flow going through the pen, and you only need to do that the initial time that you start a new pen. If after 6 times of trying that, there is no fluid coming with it, you want to change your needle tip, put a new one on, and try it and do it again. If again that doesn't happen, you don't get any flow, take it back to your pharmacy, let them know what happened, and again, they can get you another pen. All right, we've got the needle tip, the flow is good. The next thing that we want to do is we want to go to our selected dose. Now, whenever we start these medications, we start at the lowest dose possible in order to mitigate potential side effects. And if you missed my previous video where I went over the side effects in detail, go and check it out. I discussed the main side effects that you need to be thinking about and potentially need to, well, monitor for. So in terms of Saxenda, we start at 0.6 milligrams once a day for a week, and then we increase to 1.2 milligrams once daily for a week, and then we continue to increase from there as long as you're tolerating the medication. When it comes to Ozempic, we start with 0.25 milligrams once a week for 4 weeks, and then we go up to 0.5 milligrams once a week for 4 weeks, and so on. Now, it's going to vary person to person. Of course, work in conjunction with your family pharmacist, your family physician, to make sure that you're doing the proper titration that works for you and your schedule and all of those things. All right, so we've got Saxenda. We know our dose. We're going to start at the 0.6, and so what you're going to do is crank it up until you see 0.6 milligrams. So this is the first number that'll come up on here. Obviously, there's a number of clicks in between, but you'll go up to that 0.6 milligram or whatever dose that you're designated to start at, and this will be your starting dose. So now our pen is ready to inject. We just need to do the injection. Now, most people, when we do the injection, we aim for usually the abdomen area, somewhere on the abdomen. The biggest thing we want to do is we want to be about 2 inches away from our belly button, or about the size of our fist. If you take your fist and place it right over your belly button, and you go about 2 inches, that'll give you about 2 inches away from that belly button there, and you can kind of go anywhere above and below your belly button through the abdomen area, all right? The other area that you can sometimes inject is in your upper outer thigh, so kind of down the side of your thigh is another area. It's not my usual one that I recommend, but if you're looking to rotate your sites, you can certainly do that. And here is a diagram with the injection sites on it to give you a bit better picture. I will definitely leave a link down in the comments or down in the description down below so that you can click on that and have that for yourself. The next big thing that you want to remember to do is that rotate your sites. So if you do in your upper abdomen one day, you want to switch to your other side the next day, and so on. Particularly if you're doing Saxenda, you're going to be doing a daily injection. So you want to make sure you're rotating your sites around the abdomen and not injecting in the same spot every single day. Vice versa with Ozempic, wherever you injected once 1 week, you want to go to the other side or somewhere else the following week. Now, I'd like everyone to meet Mr. Cucumber here. He is going to be our example dummy, if you will, in doing the injection with Saxenda here. So we're going to kind of think of this as your abdomen, as it kind of is just hanging out there, just like this. And the biggest thing we want to do is we want to take this pen and we want to go perpendicular to the floor. So here is my abdomen. You want to take the pen and push it in until it's flush with the skin. Please do not be doing any harpooning or anything like that. Keep it in, just keep it flush, just like that. And then you want to try and have the dose dial pointing towards you so that you can see when it zeroes out. But the other good way is to press the button until you hear it zero out. And once it zeroes out, you know the dose has been given. Hopefully it's not going to be leaking out. My Mr. Cucumber here is not the best patient in that respect. But the dose has been administered. You then want to hold the pen in place for at least 6 seconds. I usually recommend 10 seconds, and then you can remove it. All right, so your dose, you're all done now. Now what we're going to do is we are going to remove this pen tip. And what you're going to do is take this bigger cap, which I told you to hang on to, place it over the top so that needle tip is nice and protected and you don't stab yourself. You're then going to twist it off, of course, take it off, and do not reuse, do not share with others, do not pass go and collect $200. You will go right to jail in this situation. I know, it's a good Monopoly joke. That's the first one here. But there you go. Now the pen tip is off. Your pen is all good and can be put on the counter or what have you. You want to keep it out of direct sunlight and out of any large temperature changes as well. Try not to keep it in humid environments. That definitely can affect the medication itself too. You want to take your pen tip, and if you have a sharps container, fantastic. Throw it in the sharps container. If you don't, another sturdy container like a glass jar, a protein container-ish thing, or something that's just sturdy and the needle won't ultimately go through the side of it, can be a great one to put this into. Try not to put it into a Ziploc plastic baggie or anything, because obviously the needles can go through that and that can be problematic. And don't throw it in your garbage because, well, your local garbage man probably won't like needles being in your garbage bag very much. All right, that is that. All you got to do, like I said, put that back on. Your dose is done. You are good to go. And yeah, that's really all that there is to it. Pretty easy, right? So again, that's the procedure for the Saxenda and Ozempic pens. Relatively straightforward. As I said, this is probably going to be the same procedure for the Wegovy pen as well once it hits the market. Once I get that pen, I can get my hands on a sample. I will definitely show you guys that one in particular. But that's for Saxenda, that's for Ozempic. It's simple, it's quick, it's easy, and you know the other GLP-1 receptor agonists will have somewhat of a similar process, but they're all slightly different in their mechanism because they're all made by different drug companies. So keep that in mind, and of course, as always, if you have any comments, questions, concerns, drop them down below, and as always, don't forget to subscribe down below as well, so you don't miss another video that comes out from me. And until next time, my friends, always remember that small tweaks lead to massive peaks.